Good evening, everyone. I'm David Johnson of Transform Ed Consulting, and those is a list of all of the services that we offer: program evaluation and assessment, all the way to on-site technical assistance. And I'd like to give a shout out to my dear colleague, Cassandra Williams. She's the brains behind Educational Innovation 360 Degrees, and she allows us to use her channel. We have as our guest tonight, Dr. Caron Sada. Caron Sada, PhD, residential psychology faculty, Paradise Valley Community College, Peoria, Arizona, designs and or implements innovation and entrepreneurship initiatives for the Maricopa Center for Learning and Innovation, Maricopa Community College District. Before joining higher education, Dr. Sada worked in sales, marketing, fundraising, and management leadership positions. Her education is multidisciplinary and includes speech and hearing sciences, business administration, and organizational psychology. She is the creator of the Z model and the art and science of culture change. Hello, Caron.
Hi, David. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. You know, I have lots of questions for you. I like your description as multidisciplinary. How did you wind up going so many different directions?
Because I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up.
I know what you wanted to be.
What?
You wanted to be a rock and roller.
Yes, you're telling my secrets. That didn't work out either. But yeah, I did. I started out a fine and performing arts student, and then I lasted one semester and kept moving around. And I now call it purposeful meandering, which I got from Oprah. And then I found my way into higher education, finally figured out where I wanted to be when I grew up. So I might not be grown up, but I am where I want to be.
And you're from Arizona.
I grew up in Washington State, mostly the Puget Sound area. And then I moved to Yuma, Arizona in high school, where I was a Yuma High criminal. There's a story there, the mascot, they're the criminals, because of the territorial prison. And then I came to Phoenix, and so now I've been in Arizona for a very long time, since before the turn of the century.
Now, could you describe for us what a residential psychology faculty member is?
In the 10 college system of Maricopa, residential faculty is just full-time faculty. So I'm a full-time employee for the Maricopa County Community Colleges.
Oh, that's what residential means. It means that you're full-time.
Yes.
As opposed to adjunct, like I am an adjunct.
Yes, I started out adjunct, yes.
Okay, I get it. I understand. Well, what does your work entail? You're involved with innovation and entrepreneurship. So what does that involve?
You know, I teach psychology classes at Paradise Valley Community College, and then I work for our district office part-time on this innovation and entrepreneurship programming. And through MCLI, we're trying to bring people into co-creation experiences. So for instance, last year and this year, we're doing some First Friday events at our makerspace, where you come, and as soon as you walk into a makerspace, it feels different. You don't walk into a boardroom, you don't walk into a conference room and look for an agenda. In the makerspace, it's informal and casual, and then we're building skills like design thinking, different skill building while we have a making experience to get people out of their comfort zone and see what innovative and entrepreneurial behaviors feel like, a little less certainty, more so than being an expert and doing things the way we've always done them or perfecting what we've done in the past.
Now, with entrepreneurship, does that mean that whatever they are innovating should go to market, or how does entrepreneurship fit into the?
You know, we're using the term entrepreneurial or entrepreneurship in the broadest terms, where it even means, you know, being willing to go into uncertainty and try something you haven't tried before you have the resources to pull it off, but to get started anyway. But it could mean, especially at the makerspace, you know, with 3D printing and playing with laser cutters and that kind of thing, that students, employees, or community members who participate could invent something and go to market.
And what would be your definition of innovation? Innovative. What is innovative?
Innovative, you know, I think about anything novel, something that creates new value, something unexpected and different from what we've done before. I'm passionate about beating up on the status quo and overcoming that. So if we can get outside of the status quo, that would be the right step toward innovation.
Well, I guess you've done that a bit yourself. You are the creator of the Z model and the art and science of culture change. What is the Z model and what is the art and science of culture change?
They really they're an expression of the culture shock that I experienced when I came into education after being in more entrepreneurial and uncertain environments. So coming into higher ed, I thought things might be a little slower because of bureaucracy and because we have to be good stewards. But I
Mhm,
was a little surprised at how slow we are.
mhm,
Um, and so with the Z model, also, I think we have a lot of good intentions. We have helping intentions with our students. So the Z model is really a student success set of experiences where we look at students based on their strengths, not their deficits. And so instead of it saying, hey, you know what, we see that you have a problem, we have something for you.
mhm,
Instead, we say, I see your gifts, or you know what, I see this talent, or I see this interest. How would you like to develop that further? And especially in the community college, if students come to us without an academic identity or not being so sure that this college thing is for them, then we want to bring them in, welcome them in based on their strengths. And then, if it's math or reading or whatever it is, while we're focused on their strengths and we're creating this fun, exciting, thriving experience for them, then we can also give them the support services they need to overcome what's not as easy for them so far.
well,
So
that's
that's really
great.
the Z model.
And the art and science of culture change?
That is okay. And I'll tell you, the tagline for the Z model is facilitating positive organizational change while delivering student success. Because my specialty is organizational psychology, um, I'm hoping for change in education. I'm really hoping for change. So, how could we do that? And nobody wants to be told that they're the problem or they need to change. That's something that we have to discover and choose for ourselves. So,
Mhm,
within the art and science of culture change, it's a comprehensive co creation and change model or framework or set of tools that it's hands on experiences. Like, imagine yourself in a maker space and
mhm.
actually us do co-creating and trying things together where we really do rely on our strengths, and then we help each other through what might not be so easy for us. So the art and science of culture change is a comprehensive co-creation and change model with 31 themes, concepts, or dots.
Well, Karen, it's fun getting to know you. But we have a topic this evening,
Okay.
looking toward the 22nd century as entrepreneurial leaders of change. And four topics: entrepreneurial leaders of change, or 21st century, 22nd century leaders, and so on. So we have four topics here. Where would you like to start?
Well, even with entrepreneurial leaders of change, so that's maybe an identity we could see if it fits for us, or we might like to dive into this identity for ourselves. Within the model, it's entrepreneurial leaders of change are generous, they're courageous, they're humble, and they're learners with a bias toward action. And so this could be used by coaches. It could be used for ourselves for kind of self-assessment. We could use it with a group of people. And, maybe if we get stuck on something, stuck in that status quo, maybe someone says, what if we were just a little bit more generous with this design? What might that look like? Or what if we were a little more humble because we know so much? There's so many advanced degrees in higher education, but what don't we know? What do we need to learn to overcome that status quo? So it creates some conversation starters around our identity as what does a leader look like at this point in the 21st century as we head toward the 22nd, not replicating what we were trying to do in the 20th century.
Well, Karen, when I first looked at this, my mouth is all twisted. Entrepreneurial leaders of change, or 21st and 22nd century leaders. I thought you had someone in mind. I didn't know that you were speaking about individuals, you, me, and others who would be entrepreneurial leaders. Could you speak more about how we could become entrepreneurial leaders?
You know what? Because of the way you just said that, Chris Figueroa was a student of mine, and he grew up. He had a lot of gang experiences in his background, but he came to our college, and he was a leader. Students followed him. He was inspiring, and he had a lot of gifts that we needed in the college for students, employees, and community members. So these really human gifts, especially in the era of AI. Chris was generous, he was courageous, he was humble, he was a learner. He wasn't a knower, he was a learner with a bias toward action. And Chris Figueroa made a difference in a lot of people's lives as a community college student. And actually, now that I've mentioned Chris, I could tell you a lot of stories about students who created transformational experiences for each other. Because sometimes as people in educational roles, we think it has to be us that does this for our students, for our colleagues. But if we create opportunities for those gifts to show up in anyone, that's how we can co-create much more effectively. If we're looking for the one great leader or the one great boss, the 22nd century is going to be too complicated for them to come up with all the answers. And now that we have ChatGPT going viral, there's a lot we can just get there. So we're going to have to go back to what is the best of being human and how can we take ourselves to the 22nd century that we hope for?
Over the years, I've read and heard lots of things about what a leader is, lots of definitions of leader. And one that just came to mind was a leader is not anything unless there are people who would follow him or her. You spoke of students as being entrepreneurial leaders, or just the common guy on the street, common girl on the street, guy and gal on the street as being entrepreneurial leaders. What is the thing that they would have that others would not have, who would not have those leadership charisma, let's say, or leadership abilities?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's with the definition within the model of the generosity, courage, humility, being a learner, and a bias toward action. These are things that we can draw upon ourselves, and it also helps challenge 20th century management thinking, where we have to control. We're trying to control people and resources, or we're trying to get buy-in, or we're trying to get consensus, because that 20th century management stuff was really good about control and compliance, but it wasn't so good at divergent thinking or developing what doesn't exist so far. Those wicked problems that we're trying to solve. And that's also why we like having novices and experts together in problem solving are valuable. But if we think that because we have more years of experience or more years of education, that the answers have to come from us, then we've already created an obstacle to innovation and entrepreneurship. And that's part of why kind of redefining these as behaviors as opposed to like transformational leadership, situational leadership, charismatic, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. And I could probably go even further in this topic, but we have 3 other good topics. So where would you like to go next? We have shine a light on the work of others. Where would you like to go next?
And that's what for us in higher education too, because a lot of our rewards in higher education are individual rewards for educators. But the shine a light on the work of others is a concept. It's one of the concepts within the art and science of culture change. And that's good. Are we generous? Are we shining the light on the work of others, or are we shining the light on ourselves? Who do we give the microphone to? Do we hold on to the microphone because we have the most power in the room, so we get to talk for the longest? Or do we allow other voices to have center stage? Since you're a musician.
I was going to say, and aside to this, you're holding the microphone because you're doing karaoke.
Yes. Let everyone sing. Everyone has a song. Let them sing.
Uh-huh.
And there is a shine a light on the work of others. For instance, we have an adjunct faculty member, Frank Crevens, and I'm a student in his ceramics class right now. And Frank has all of those qualities of an entrepreneurial leader of change. And if we started to notice that in each other and see it and say it out loud when we see these things in each other, then it's in these everyday moments that we create what I call radical inclusion. But I saw on Cassandra's slide, she says inclusion and fusion, which I like too.
That's a new one. But you got to give her credit for it, though.
Mm-hmm.
Caron, we talked about this before we went live, so let me go back to it. Entrepreneurial. Does everything someone creates need to be a money maker?
Oh, I love that you said that, because within my work, it's really more about social entrepreneurship, where we're trying to make things better. We're serving the needs of other people. So not just can I squeeze enough, profit out of an idea, or do I invent something and then I become a bazillionaire and buy I think it's a 500-foot yacht that Bezos just got. Not really that, but how do we go into this uncertainty together and solve problems we haven't solved together, and not be afraid of not having the answers? Because if we can go into co-creation, then it's not scary because we're doing it together. And so I think more about a culture of social entrepreneurship, but it's still based on entrepreneurial mindset, entrepreneurial behaviors.
Entrepreneurial in that you are willing to take a chance.
Yeah, go into uncertainty. Try to start working towards something before you have all the resources to pull it off.
Right. Uncertainty. In my preparation, I'm not an organizational psychologist, but I did study organizational theory. And we learned, and I still agree, that the thing people dislike most is uncertainty. Whenever there's a change, the uncertainty is, what's going to happen to me? Will I lose my job? Will things change so dramatically that I've got to go back to school, or I've got to go back into training? So as someone who is an advocate of change, as someone who is an advocate of entrepreneurship, how do you address the uncertainty and the fallout from the uncertainty?
Well, this is why you can't you can't listen to a lecture. We have to do things together. And that's why the makerspace movement is so valuable, is to take ourselves into art experiences or makerspace experiences where iteration and uncertainty is part of the fun, to actually help us physically experience uncertainty as fun and excitement, as opposed to danger.
Will Robinson, danger, Will Robinson.
Yeah, exactly. So I think a lot of the work that I do is art experiences, making experiences, getting CEOs out of their tie, and having them do some things that are playful, design thinking experiences that are playful and low stakes, to take us into what this looks like and feels like. Because if we're in the culture of knowing place, then uncertainty is very unappealing. We want to be certain because we want to look smart, and we want to look like we know what we're doing. So we have to, through experience, go into uncertainty together. But a lot of our experiences in our workplaces and in our schools are still set up for certainty.
Okay, Caron. Okay. Now you gave the example of the boss, the CEO, must demonstrate certainty. I've been in lots of positions, and goodness gracious, I just want someone to say, David, do this, or David, we need this, do it, or make this happen. Not, I don't know what to do. What do you, what? How do we deal with that?
Well, the uncertainty is, I think about like when COVID hit, we weren't going to look at a college president who said, okay, we'll do now 1, 2, and 3, go. How do you take in information or insights, right? And how do you empower people to, like if you said, like they say, okay, let's look at safety protocols, go. But some of the answers, if were ambiguous, and even now with ChatGPT, education is having to redesign a lot of stuff that we've done the same way for a lot of years, even after going through the uncertainty of COVID. Did we come out of COVID more comfortable with uncertainty and wicked problems, or did we come out of COVID saying, no, I want my certainty back, let's go back?
I'm reminded of a supposed quote from Steve Jobs: don't hire people and tell them what to do, hire good people and have them tell you what to do. So it sounds like that's what you're suggesting. If you are the so-called leader, you want to surround yourselves with good people, good thinkers, who can help you think through things and make a collective decision. Right.
It's very tough to have all the right answers by yourself in 2023. And it'll be probably harder in the 22nd century.
Right. I'm reminded of something else from my education. The worst budget.
Are you going to share it?
Yeah, I'm telling you now. The worst budget is one that you make alone in your office. Yeah, can you imagine that? If you made all your decisions without consulting with the experts around you.
Mhm.
Okay, we still have two good topics here. And only 10 minutes remaining. Getting to the fourth goal of psychology. What will we do? And you capitalize do, D-O.
Do.
Why is do capitalized?
We have to have experiences. We have to take action. We can't watch lectures and become experts on innovation, entrepreneurship, and change. We actually have to do change. Action sport. So the four goals of psychology, if you took Psych 101, it's to describe a phenomena, to explain it, to predict it, and then to influence it. So a lot of times we're describing these things, but we never get to the fourth goal of actually influencing them or doing them. So if we really do want co-creation and change, that's going to be action together. That's going to be interpersonal action together. It's not going to be a right answer from a PowerPoint or from a best-selling book. Like we love Simon Sinek, Brene Brown, Amy Edmondson, and Adam Grant. But just because we found our why, if we don't do something with that, then knowing our why really doesn't translate into as much value as it could for us, students, employees, and community members. What are you thinking, David?
Would you not think that the environment where you find yourself has a lot to do with whether you can implement your why?
Oh, I think that's interesting too, because when I worked for pharmaceutical companies, there were days when I had a hard time, like finding meaning in my work. So I had to really work hard at my why and my meaning. But in education, we're surrounded with humans that are striving. So we are immersed, I think, in easy to find whys in education, which is part of the reason that I'm glad I ended up here toward the end of my career, because there's so much meaning available in our everyday lives at work.
Meaning, such as?
Being around students that are striving, asking questions, being curious, trying new things, helping me with technology, telling me about the gaming they're doing that I don't understand. The whole being in a real learning environment where people have come with different experiences and talents, and then working with other faculty members that have specialized. I was at happy hour one day with my friend David Pegram, and we spent happy hour talking about commas, the the commas in English writing. So we can go on so many interesting rabbit holes, but most importantly, we get to work with students who are trying to go somewhere in their lives, and that's the best part.
Now I'm forgetting. Is it it's not the Oxford comma. What is it?
Yes, the Oxford comma.
Yeah, the Oxford comma. I use the Oxford comma, by the way. I like how you said rabbit hole, because what's that expression? Examining your navel or exploring your navel. What is that expression?
I don't know that one, David.
Oh, you don't know that one? Yeah, I guess it's the precursor to a rabbit hole, where you're thinking so hard that you spend all your time just trying to explore your navel and going deep into things that are that don't have a real big payoff, I guess you might say.
I'll have to look that one up after we talk.
Okay. Okay. Our last topic's a culture for each of us, all of us.
Mm-hmm. So on that one, that's one of the themes again within the art and science of culture change. And since we're going into the 2024 election, some people might have noticed that there's some division around us. And so as we're learning from each other and listening to each other, eventually our bold vision needs to have an implicit and an explicit we. We need to eventually get to a we. But to reach out and understand the perspectives of other people. But heading toward that 22nd century that we aspire to, ideally, we're picturing how all of us get there in a multicultural way, where we inspire each other and learn from each other, and we're not just afraid of each other or being critical of each other.
Multicultural. Um, so I take it then you see the future in the United States anyway, maybe throughout the world that's multicultural.
Definitely, the world has become so much more interconnected, and so we are in a multicultural world. And we think we're, my students, and I teach psychology and culture. So when we talk about what does it mean to be ethnocentric, or when we think we're being open, or we think we're curious about other people, we still have some room to grow in that as humans. And again, since we have ChatGPT to do a lot of work for us now, and generative AI, we might as well focus on the human stuff, and figure out more of this together. And that's why I think heading toward that 22nd century, imagining this culture that's for each of us and all of us. And even if we don't get there right now, to have that as an aspiration.
Caron, I want to boil a couple of things together.
Okay.
22nd century and going there. You've heard the expression, I'm sure. If you don't know where you're going, you'll likely end up somewhere else. So, and then that whole idea of uncertainty. If the 22nd century or the 21st century and going into the 22nd century is so uncertain, we are likely to end up somewhere else. Where might that somewhere else be?
Well, I think of it as how are we going to be interacting with each other? How are we going to treat each other when we don't understand the perspectives of someone else? What are the first 5 things we do, as opposed to the first thing we do is you're dangerous, or there's so I think of us improving our interpersonal habits, so that if Steve Jobs does build his little worlds that we can float around in space in, that they are places where humans have become more sophisticated in some way. And if we look at philosophers over the millennia, humans repeat some behaviors, but we do have the potential to become more sophisticated and do better with each other.
Well, ma'am, we've touched a lot of different topics here, and I'm sure we didn't hit them all. It'd be more to discuss. So let me pull up this slide again so we can talk about how people can get in touch with you when they want to learn more about the things that you bring to the table. And here, nope, that's not it. There it is. That's the slide we want right there. So, Caron, if people want to know more, how do they contact you?
I'm really easy to find on LinkedIn, Dr. Caron Sada, and my name is spelled differently, so it makes me easy to find on LinkedIn, Caron. And then my website is caronsart.com, or caronsart.com. And that's where I play with my blog, and I say some things. And I like the idea of being used as a third party. If you're trying to solve a problem somewhere, using a third party to make your case can be helpful, can protect your social capital, create more certainty. So I would love to hear from anyone who is out there and wants to talk about this more or learn more about the model.
So if we want to boil down everything that we've discussed tonight, what would be the takeaway?
You think humans are motivated best by fear. And so I think we need these entrepreneurial leaders of change, 21st, 22nd century leaders that bring people together and start moving us toward the things that we hope for. And let go of some of this fear and division that we might notice in the world today. And I have hope. I have hope.
And what's the takeaway for today?
I think that's
what do you want us to do with this? The call to action.
The call to action. The call to action, thinking about the everyday differences that we can make in people's life with generosity, courage, humility, being a learner, and having a bias toward action. We don't have to go to some big leadership development program to be a leader, exactly where we are with who we are today. So be a leader, create positive change with the person sitting, with you and next to you.
Thank you, Caron. Caron Sada, PhD, residential psychology faculty, Paradise Valley Community College, Peoria, Arizona, designs and implements innovation and entrepreneurship initiatives for the the Maricopa Center for Learning and Innovation, Maricopa Community College District. Thank you for being our guest tonight, Caron, and I certainly look forward to speaking with you and seeing you again. I'm David Johnson of Transform Ed Consulting, and again, kudos to my dear colleague, Cassandra Williams, who is the brains behind Educational Innovations 360 Degrees. Thank you for being here. See you next time.